your Sunday edition of the TII podcast. My name is Dennett, and I'm joined by podcasters at different ends himself, Tommy McIntyre. How are you doing, Tommy?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Yeah, I'm led to believe that some people might have seen me describing my tea preference there a little bit earlier in the stream as well. So anybody's got comments on that, I look forward to hearing them. But nice to be part of the pod again.
Yeah, and we've got a brand new guest, a new contributor with us tonight. Saftar, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for that, Craig. Okay. Welcome to everybody. Debut. So be gentle on me, guys. I know that Rangers fans are notoriously fickle. It can be for debutants, so please be gentle.
Absolutely will be. So before we get into yesterday's game and before we start to analyse a few points as we head into another big week for Rangers, just want to say tonight's podcast is brought to you in association over at Zenith Coins, who are giving every Rangers fan the opportunity to own their own memorable coin collection. Zenith have created a set of 5 wonderfully crafted coins, each celebrating a huge in our club's history. They've got one for the founding fathers, they've got one for Ibrox Stadium, they've got one for the European Cup winners winning from 1972 in Barcelona, one for the main row team, and one for the 55th. We challenge you to go and have a look, check them out over at Zenith Coins website, allws.zenithcoins.com. So it's been a big week for Rangers. We had a bit of a disaster in Belgium, I think it's fair to say, and we also had our first return to Ibrox this season. Tommy, coming to you first of all, just get your overall thoughts on the game yesterday against Kilmarnock.
Well, I think what's the word that springs to mind? Dodgy. I thought Rangers played reasonably well, dominated possession up against the Derek McInnes team. I don't think there was any great surprises in what was coming through the door. Great to see Colak get his first goal. Great to see El Buff back, so to speak, with the Gaza haircut, although I'm convinced that will darken every time he scores a goal. As I said on social media, like recharging a battery. But really just a pretty stodgy game, and it's one of those ones where you instantly ring the cliche bell, and it's 3 points. And I'm sure we'll touch on this later. It's not the long answer right now, but at some point there's going to have to be more dominant performances. And I don't mean dominating the ball and having lots of chances that aren't on target. Actually putting teams firmly in their place, getting the early goal, dominating it, making sure there's no worries in the stands. By and large, it gave some of the new players a chance to see what maybe not a grumbling Ibrox sounds like, but maybe not a rocking happy as Larry Ibrox sounds like. But yeah, it's a victory. It's out the way. We carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it was our best performance by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it did show signs of improvement after Livingston the week before, and then onto USG during the week. It was definitely a big improvement from that side of things. Saf, I'm not sure whether you managed to watch the game from afar or whether you were at the game, but what was your view of the Kilmarnock game yesterday?
I wasn't at the game, certainly watched it in detail. Bearing in mind what happened on Tuesday, clearly, which was a bit of a disaster, and I know you guys have covered it in detail, I thought it was a good professional performance. Clean sheet, first game at home, clean sheet, 2 goals, ticks the box in that respect. 2 goals by the forwards. They didn't really cause too many problems to us overall. So I thought professional, solid, more can be done. But, very early days in the season, but we're only in the first week of August still. So hopefully more to come as the players gel and get things together, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll come on to a few different points from yesterday's game, taking them onwards and trying to look a bit to the future and how we see them panning out the season. I think the first of those we'll come on to is Antonio Colak. He got his first competitive goal for Rangers yesterday, and it would finish, Tommy, coming to you first on Colak. He was getting a lot of criticism around me in the stadium for his performance, and when he was getting the ball and when he wasn't, and the amount of effort he was putting in. It was safe to say people weren't particularly enamoured by him. What was your thoughts on Colak's performance yesterday? And do you think fans are expecting too much from him? Do you think fans are expecting him to be exactly like Morelos?
Rangers fans expect lots from summer signing. Shocker. It has to be said, and it's not as if we, as a support, tend to go all in when it comes to forwards as well. Listen, we didn't spend masses on them. That's sometimes a decent barometer, sometimes not. I think when you get to a slightly older player, it's a more interesting and reflective barometer of what their style of play is and what level of quality you're getting. Taking a punt on a youth player versus an older, late 20s player is different. I think he's 1.8 million. I think he's definitely suffers a little bit from, we were not expecting, but we always hope that someone's going to come in and bang in the goals early. Alfredo Morelos didn't do that. I think Morelos' first outings for us were the game that needs no mention in terms of bushes and getting knocked out by part-timers, so to speak. So, yeah, I think there was a level of expectation that was probably a little bit weighty on him. And remember, he's come into a team that hasn't been setting the header on fire over the, since the season started proper, if you like. USG being a particularly low point. And so if you actually look at, there's lots of people out there who study the analytics and the pass patterns and all that type of great statistical analysis in the background, you'll see that Rangers haven't been operating at a high level of dynamism, middle to front, right? Dominating the ball sometimes, but not actually penetrating, not getting balls in that would really look him. Has he missed the odd chance? Yeah. But I actually quite like the look of him. I think his movement's actually okay. I think he definitely can move well in the box. I just think he's getting used to the style of play. The way he took the goal against Kelly the weekend, that's not a guy that's short of confidence in himself. He doesn't take the extra touch to take him further into the box, which some people might do, allow the keeper to come out and close the angle. He just opens it up and knows what he's doing. And I definitely think that whilst he's been the subject of a little bit of grumbling, people will maybe take a step back now that he's got that first goal. If he can follow up with another one on Tuesday night or the next week outing, fully expect Alfredo Morelos to start on Tuesday night, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Then, yeah, I think we'll start to see the best of him. Ultimately, he's been bought as a backup. He's not been bought as Alfredo Morelos, and you're not going to get the same style of player. And that's not what he's there for. He's there to add a different dimension. You don't go out and buy the same type of player for your squad all the time when you've got that same player already in the squad. The whole point is building something that unlocks difficult moments with something different to allow teams to not be able to second guess you. Colak will come good and he'll score enough goals to justify the price tag and why he's included in it. And I think that's pretty much what we'll start to see.
Yeah, Saf, as Tommy said, Colak took his goal extremely well yesterday. Even the effort he put in the build-up to it to then move into the space and take the return pass from Tom Lawrence, I thought was an excellent bit of movement. His finish was calm and cool. One of the criticisms I think around me was that he doesn't get on the ball enough. He's making runs that people aren't finding, which isn't necessarily his fault. What's your view of so far? I mean, he scored against Tottenham in the last pre-season friendly. He had a goal, rightly or wrongly, disallowed against Livingston, which he took very well, and then he scored again Thursday. What are your views of Colak so far?
I think it's, as we know, still too early to tell. Second match of the season, the league season. There's no way I'm going to throw him under the bus yet. In that respect, it's too early. As you said, he took his goal really well. I thought the Kelly keeper could have done better with it. His goal wasn't tight in the corner, so but notwithstanding that, he played well. He moved forward. He was aggressive in the right way. You're right. He's making movements that people are not getting onto, but that's not his fault. That's more the midfield and others not really doing that. And also, I think we as fans are quite anchored with Morelos, how Morelos plays. He comes in deep, he gets the ball, he moves about, he bullies defenders. And he's not Morelos. He's a completely different style of player. We need to adapt to his style as well as Morelos together, separately or whatever. So we need to just kind of bear that in mind. He's got a pedigree. Clearly he did well against us, more or less this time last year, as we all know, to our detriment. He needs time. He needs the time to adapt to the Scottish football system, as well as the way Rangers play. And it's good. He scored. He took his goal well. I think there'll be a lot more to come from him. He's not certainly, I think when social media people talk about Itten Mark II and things like that, I don't think that's the case at all. I think he's a level above Itten and others that we've had. And fingers crossed he'll come good, whether that's a backup or a key striker for us.
Fingers crossed he will, and I'm starting to build a wee bit of confidence in him as well, just from his performances recently and his ability to find the back of the net. I think it is a bit of an adjustment. It's an adjustment for him coming into Scottish football. It's an adjustment for the players at Rangers to his style of play, how it is to Alfredo Morelos, and it's also an adjustment for the fans who, Tommy said, have the highest expectations of every single player that walks through there. I think the case in point might be Ridvan Yilmaz yesterday, who really did struggle, but we'll come on to that in a little bit.
Sorry, Craig, I was just going to say, I think Colak, depending on what you want your pronunciation to be, is probably the player version of your internet connection at the moment, and it's a bit stop-start, but it will come good in the end. So that's how I'm going to tag it.
Fingers crossed. I've stopped everything else streaming in the house to try and make.
I've said it before, I'll say it again.
So hopefully that's
for all our Celtic supporters who watch here, this is Ibrox going into administration. Evidently, Craig isn't able to pay his internet bill at the moment.
I just need to get the invoice into you, Tommy. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, you're breaking up, Craig. You're breaking up.
Moving on to Alfredo Morelos. Both are mentioned Morelos and the impact he had when he came on. Tommy, coming to you first. The reaction, first of all, when Morelos came out to warm up, wasn't even coming on the pitch. He was just warming up and he got a standing ovation. And then a few times when people thought he was coming on in breaks and play and the sub wasn't quite being made yet, the cheers got louder and louder. And then when he did come on, he made a real impact as well. I think you saw his quality straight away. You could tell he was struggling fitness-wise a wee bit after 10, 15 minutes, but I think the impact he makes and his presence alone makes such a difference to our team, doesn't it?
Again, I think you're spot on with that question. I think it was Rangers' social media team that kept sending them out early because it's great for their clips for RTV and their Twitter. Listen, Morelos gives us lots of different things, and you could be a bit of a naysayer and you could take that question slightly differently and say, well, we've had multiple transfer windows through different managers, and we've still not been able to satisfy the quandary of not relying on Alfredo Morelos at the top of the park. I'll park that one up right now. In that, listen, there's no walking past the fact that Morelos and the Rangers support have a really interesting and affectionate relationship. And I say interesting because it was quite clear at one point that he wanted to leave, but we seem to have walked past that quite rightly. To your actual footballing point, Morelos is our most important forward. Not only does he give the team something different in terms of that, if he's not scoring, he is dynamic. He can take on a whole backline himself to a large degree, but in particular, 2 or 3 centre-back pairing, he is able to physically get about. And some people won't really understand that it's not just a physical thing, although he is extremely strong. His actual movement off the ball and being able to turn defenders is extremely intelligent. You don't get in and around the Colombian national team unless you're a reasonably intelligent footballer as well. But more than that, he's the type of player, and this goes back to what you were saying maybe about Colak, that he's still growing in terms of, and Sark is right, I don't think he's an Itten or anything like that. He's still growing to make his imprint on other teams. People know Alfredo Morelos. He's the type of player which opposition teams set up to play against and nullify. And if you're the type of player that's forcing the other team to think about you and adapt their style of play because they're worried, you've already done half of your job, because Alfredo Morelos will also create space for other players where Rangers have struggled sometimes getting the runners in behind and stuff like that. But yeah, listen, having him back, absolutely important, particularly the second leg of USG coming up. It's a fundamentally formative tie to our season. And I mean that both from an off-balance sheet and an on-balance sheet perspective as well, particularly coming off the back of Malmo and then having the League run to the final. So, yeah, having him back there lifts the squad, lifts the support, lifts the club, lifts their chances of beating USG and overturning a deficit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're all hoping and praying that Alfredo Morelos will be fit enough to start on Tuesday night and give us at least 60 minutes. Saf, like Tommy says, Alfredo Morelos has that rare quality, I guess, where he can occupy two central defenders at any one time, and he really makes the defences think about him. I think in line with what we spoke about Colak earlier in terms of his lack of shots in that first half, I think Alfredo Morelos came on and instantly had 3 or 4 shots at goal in the 20 minutes he was on the park. I think that was just a sign of the impact he can make in his quality, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Morelos is not just one player for Rangers. He's like 1.5, 1+ half-hour player. The way he plays, the way he scares the defense, the way he bullies, the movement that he makes himself or gets other people to move, dragging the defenders around to make space for the midfielders and others to then take chances where it's Ken or Wright or others to try and come in with their pace. And he's a great player. I mean, I've got him down even at the start of the season for probably top goal scorer, top assist, assuming he stays. He's been badly missed. He's been out clearly since March, late March. I think it's for first big injury for a while. To the extent we probably would have won the European Cup if he was with us in Seville. So he's been badly missed, and it's great to see him back. Whether he starts on Tuesday, I don't know. I think Gio might go with the same kind of team that played out yesterday afternoon. But he's a great player. He's still coming to his prime. Clearly, he's thinking ahead as well to his potential new contract or new opportunity. So he's going to be working hard to try and get goals, get out and about. He by all accounts from his social media and whatever, he loves football, loves playing. So he's certainly going to be trying to do all of that plus more as he plays. And I think it's good timing for us, certainly for Tuesday and the season starting. Already he's got a goal. Already looks really hungry. As you said, he was out and about, bullying defenders, getting shots on target, which is what you want. Because you want people to there's no point passing it about and getting possession in midfield and nothing's happening. You want people out and about, playing with aggression, speed, enthusiasm. As I said, he's not just one player. He adds another kind of half a player dimension to Rangers that nobody has done in recent history, and certainly currently not now in the current team.
Yeah, just to say there, sorry, I agree with Saf in terms of that 1.5 thing. Whatever way of putting it, I'm convinced he's carrying the extra 0.5 in his backside.
It does seem to have a wee bit of weight on while he's been out injured, but I'm sure past that can come off pretty quickly. Tommy, just as we I think everyone's kind of alluded to Tuesday night, and we know how important that is for us as a team going forward into the season. One person who made his debut yesterday was Ridvan Yilmaz. He seemed particularly nervous in the first half, and then I think after that he just tried to play it safe until he was replaced by Borna Barisic, and I think it was about 65th minute or so. What was your thoughts on him? Who would you kind of go with for Tuesday night?
Two questions there, so I'll answer the latter one first, which is I go with Yilmaz on Tuesday night. I think he's match ready. I don't think there's any fitness concerns. I think he can fit in. Actually, it's quite interesting, the first part of your question, and Saf touched on it earlier as well, right? In terms of whilst we may slightly disagree on how the performance looked against Kilmarnock, he's absolutely right in terms of clean sheet, and Ridvan was part of that. So job number one, do your job defensively. It's not just unique to Rangers, but it's a particular part of our recent history that we think of fullbacks in terms of, right, so did they get good crosses in? Did they assist? Could they get a goal? James Tavernier, I'm looking at you, Borna, I'm looking at some of you, type of thing. Calvin Bassey, was out there as well. Mostly playing left centre backs and things like that. But so that's just something that we look at in terms of what can it give us in an offensive perspective. But first and foremost, and I get why you might have been nervous or just playing it safe. Just in the door, a lot's been made of your move, not just by the Rangers support, but also, in Turkey as well, coming across because he's a name there. And so he just wants to bed himself in, first be in front of the home fans, keep it simple. Do you know what? I can absolutely live with that, as opposed to trying to beat 4 men in the edge of the box and set up an attack. Right, first and foremost, you're a defender, defend, and then we'll see what you can do forward. So yeah, kept it simple, didn't do anything wrong is another way to look at that. And that's all you need. Has he done enough to start? Yes, for me. I think I just like his athleticism from what I've seen, and I know he's only here than a couple of years recently, but from what I've seen in Turkey, I like his athleticism. He's obviously been bought to develop and then make a profit on. That's quite fine. And quite frankly, I still have question marks about Borna in terms of his personality makeup. Sometimes he is the Borna Barisic of all, headband, flattening the wind, so to speak, from his Ozjek days. And sometimes he just looks flat and like it's all just a bit too much, and he's seen it and done it, and he could be somewhere else. I'll take somebody who's a wee bit hungrier. Yeah, simple, a fairly sharp answer from me. Let's go with the new star.
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with you. It's probably 70-30 in favour of Yilmaz for me. Saf, I think some of the comments from people around me in the club deck yesterday, and the people around me in the club deck are going to hopefully shut up after me referencing them every 2 minutes on this podcast. But they were kind of criticising him for his size. They thought he was a bit small. They thought he was a bit lightweight. He lost out in his first 3 or 4 tackles, I think, against what is a Derek McInnes team, which is very physical. Is that any concern for you at all, or is that simply something that he's 21 years old, he's going to continue to develop? We've seen what our fitness team can do with their special coffees to increase players' strength. Is that something that you're not really concerned about, or is it actually a concern?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, Scottish football is very physical. Okay, it's very aggressive, it's very physical, it's very aerial as well, to some extent, notwithstanding Rangers. So it can be very aerial. So clearly that's a concern, that's an issue. But I trust the management team, by the bottom. I'm quite excited actually about Yilmaz on both sides, on the left side with him and Kent, as well as on the right with Tav Matendo, really kind of playing well and playing with speed, aggression. I would start him certainly on Tuesday. I think he had a decent game yesterday. He did the kind of simple stuff, as Tommy said, well. Didn't do anything exciting, but he had a decent debut. We've got a left back issue, post the Bassi kind of leaving, and we need to solve it. You start your best player. He's got European experience. He's got good experience in the Turkish league. He's, from what I know of him, very sound, aggressively going forward, great crosser, pretty proactive. And that's what we want. That's what we want as Rangers fans. That's what we need as a Rangers team. Certainly on Tuesday, to be winning, and be, generally speaking, whoever we play, we need that type of fullback. And Borna, for whatever reason, hasn't given us it. He came on yesterday. He was fairly sound on that. We've got another option now. We need to use that, utilise that ASAP.
Yeah, Tommy, as Saf says, we expect players, especially at Ibrox, to be really dynamic and really aggressive going forward, and I don't think that's necessarily just restricted to the wide areas and the forward players. I think that's what we expect from our midfielders as well. Looking at last week's game against Union, I think it was a midfield that did so well for us last season towards the latter stages, but I think the midfield of Lundstrom, Kamara and Jack isn't really suited to games, in particular when we are favouring or need to take that initiative. Firstly, were you surprised that was the midfield that Gio selected for that game? And I assume after Stephen Davis's performance yesterday, you'd expect him to be in the starting lineup for Tuesday.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things that you mentioned in there, which is that was a midfield that got us to a European final. And we're not talking years and years ago, we're talking last year. So I can absolutely understand the manager and the management team's faith in that midfield. And particularly they offer that domination of the ball. in terms of being able to move it and shift it around. I think maybe to your point, and please do let me know if I picked up incorrectly, that they are slightly overly defensive in terms of they do sit, let's say, they sit pre-halfway line if you want, but the expectation is people like Kamara and Lundstrom can't get to the box and stuff like that. Ryan Jack can score the odd worldie in a cup final and stuff like that as well. So I think there is that ability. It just didn't work. Do I think you take one of them out, particularly maybe either Kamara or Ryan Jack? Because I will always stick with Jon Lundstrom's dynamism, his power and his ability to read the game. Then yes, with Stephen Davis. So I mean, just going back to USG was a bad night. So I can understand why you say that midfielder. I'm not entirely sure. I don't agree with the way they set up the team or the system, right? But I can understand why you want to dominate the ball in an away European match. So far, so good. I actually agree with you in terms of where we're slightly favourite and we have to do the unlocking. They're not the midfield of choice that I would pick off, right? We also just had a bad night all round. The white players didn't work. Those full backs that you're talking about earlier, or we were talking about earlier, didn't really do the job we were wanting. We didn't get in amongst the lines. We didn't penetrate through. We let them play. We played in front of them. And we were a bit ropey at the back as well, a bit ball shy, but in our movement sometimes as well. It didn't seem to translate. Anything that we wanted to do, it just didn't come up. I'm not giving the players a pass or anything like that. Should have done absolutely better. But I'll echo Van Bronckhorst. It was lucky that we gave it to them. I think the man just called the spot on. The tie could be over. Thankfully, it's not. And we do have a chance. Early goal. Anything could happen with the eye blocks. Cliche inserted, right? So to speak. But Stephen Davis needs to win. His ability to not only sit at that fulcrum and be able to dictate the play and to a large extent the tempo of that play as well around about, but see him pass and see the killer pass is something that we're missing. So I'd be genuinely be shocked if he doesn't drop into the midfield on Tuesday night because we need to go for it. That's simple. There's no sitting there and waiting for a 2-0 to overturn itself. USG will not turn up overly nervous, I don't think. Might get a little bit surprised with the size of the crowd, the vociferous of it, nature of it, but we also know that should they get something early, or we don't look like we are at it for the first 10 minutes, sometimes the stands can turn against us. And so that's the whole point of any team coming to Ibrox. I'm sure people have heard this before. Opposition managers are always saying, quieten the fans. Just shut them down. And you shut them down by making the team look like they're not at it or getting one yourself. And I sense that USG might actually come and try and get one themselves.
Yeah, I think so. And I think from their comments in recent days, they got beat 3-0 at the weekend there. I think it was last night. They got beat 3-0 and they didn't well at all, but the players came out saying that they confident because of how they played against Rangers on Tuesday. Some of the players seem to say that the crowd will have an impact, and some seem to say that the crowd won't have an impact. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Saf, just going back to Stephen Davis, I think when he signed his new 1-year deal and Scott Arfield signed his new 1-year deal, a lot of people actually saw that as a negative from the club during the summer, almost like we're staying in the past and we're not going forward with the younger future as such like that. But I think it's what Stephen Davis proved yesterday and continues to prove is that age is just enough to really just trust what our eyes show us, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things there. I was surprised as well when Arfield, Davis, even McGregor got fresh contracts in June. I was really surprised by that, and I was just trying to understand that kind of intent by the management. So you've got to put this in context. Davis was playing Kilmarnock at Ibrox, home. So his performance is very, very good. That pass to make the Morelos goal was a great pass. So let's put that in context. In the context of last Tuesday and the midfield that's set up then, I wasn't surprised. I thought last Tuesday's lineup was a positive lineup. I thought this is a decent lineup that will minimum draw or we could win here. But clearly it didn't happen. Clearly they went too defensive. They went too passive 100%. And that's on them. That's not to say that lineup or that trio couldn't work going forward. Kamara, I felt, had a decent pre-season. He was playing well. He was been reasonably aggressive. He was doing nice turns and passing, forward more so, I felt, and that's what merited his start. And he's certainly during the 55 season, he's a fantastic player. I thought he was not saying coming to that form, but slowly getting to that kind of levels potentially around that. And it was sad to see that on Tuesday, kind of falling apart, and everybody kind of missing a trick and looking for each other rather than being aggressive and forward thinking completely. I think Davis will probably start on Tuesday. I think he's probably merited that based on what happened yesterday. But still, I mean, I still wonder. He is older. These guys, USG on Tuesday, I suspect will be more aggressive. I agree with Tommy. They score one, the game is over, kind of. So we're gonna really think of it like that as well. And they press much better than Kilmarnock did yesterday. So we've got to kind of bear these kind of factors in mind and see how he does start. I think he will start, but whether he should start or whether he might have to come off in the second half, especially if you're chasing the game and it's not working out for him in terms of passing and just controlling that kind of midfield potentially.
Yeah, Tommy, one thing I want to touch on, I think it's becoming a bit of a trend that we're starting to see over the first three competitive games we've had anyway, is that defensively we seem to have a panicky 10 or 15 minutes at certain points in the game. I think we had one yesterday as well, particularly at 1-0. I think it was about 70 to 80 minutes roughly, where we conceded a few corners in a row and we couldn't clear the ball, and the crowd were getting a bit antsy, and it seems to have become a bit more of a trend in the open games of this season than it has been previously. We also saw again Connor going out with the ball from the centre of defence and then losing the halfway line as he was tackled by a player. Is that becoming a bit of a concern for you, or is it just early season getting in the swing of everything?
It's not a particular concern for me. I'm used to all the podders, and this is Ibrox doing me routinely. So I'm used to it. More often that's bad. But my take with that would be, it's not a new thing. I probably disagree with you there, right? In fact, I'll take away the word probably. I disagree with you. It's not a new trend. We always have it. It happened last season, it happened the season before, it happened seasons immemorial, right? And it'll happen in all the future seasons. I think the difference to your point, happy to have a conversation about it, but to your point, football fans, Rangers fans, it's all psychology to a large extent, right? I think players get away with the odd laps, or you get away with that stodgy 15 minutes. And I will come back to your point, right? I do get it, but you get away with those stodgy 15 minutes or those panicky 15 minutes or teams creating chances if actually Rangers have created a buzz of consistent confidence round about them. Because we all go, a wee bit of ropey 15 minutes. That's football. We're always going to create chances. That's how you look at that, as if we're playing really, really well and dominating. When you're back in the bar, the restaurant, the pub, whatever, right? That's how that conversation goes. If we've not played particularly well and it's off the run of some not particularly good games and the performances haven't been stellar, all of a sudden you knit those things together quite right and you say, oh, that's a trend. And that's what's the real worry. It's not the individuals. It's not the fact that other teams can create chances, because it is a team game and you can't dominate all the time. So I think that's the point. We've started from a very, very, semi-high, right? European final, winning the Scottish Cup, losing the European final. And then you go into the pre-season, it's good. We make some good signings, we spend some money, we see investment after players leaving. Everybody's on a high, there's a good buzz about the club. And then you get the football proper, and it's not been great, right? Now you can turn around and say, well, actually, we're 2 for 2 in the league, fine, right? But it's not been great. That's why it starts to get that consistency is undermined in the confidence, because you're never seeing anything that looks really, really good. And actually, football fans, by and large, particularly Rangers fans, right? Because we're right on success, don't really get overly vexed up about, but we put in rock solid defensive performances. Most of our thinking is middle to front. Right, because that's so to your point. I think the worry is there always does seem to be and we've changed some of the personnel in the back line. We do seem to get a bit rocky for extended periods, and it's not like a team will create a chance. By and large, and I'm sure somebody can I'm going to pull the stats on this, right, come back at me in the comments or whatever at a later date. But I would reckon actually, if you looked at us, we probably give up chances in one. As in, they've created a clear-cut chance to get another one, and then we'll go for a period of defending really well, and then there's 2 chances, and that seems to be how we do it. And I think that's maybe to your point, not to re-articulate your question, but that's what worries me actually, in terms of when we fall into one of these ruts, and the fact that we seem to think as a team, the players, that we've not been playing great, and we take that step back as opposed to the step forward because they can't dominate most sides that we come up against. That's probably my take on it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree, I guess, on some of that. I think potentially we've set a high bar in the season. We won 55, obviously conceding a record low of a number of goals that season in the league. We're a bit scarred from last season in terms of the way that we drew some games or dropped some points. Looking at Ross County, Hearts, Motherwell, Ibrox, all of those that have been spoken about over and over again. I guess the concern, Saf, and I don't know if you would be in agreement, the concern is from Rangers fans and their reaction would be that, oh no, we're going to start conceding stupid goals or sloppy goals again, and we're going to find ourselves behind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a concern, and that's a concern that I share, and we need to stop it or cut it out. Yesterday was a good example, clean sheet. They didn't really have many chances to score. There wasn't any much risk. I'm sure you guys saw it in the last 10 minutes, last 50 minutes. They through mistakes of Rangers, they had a few corners, together consecutively, and we dealt with them reasonably well. McLaughlin punched out a couple, I believe, as I was watching, and so you felt confidence in that. I'm of the opinion that McLaughlin should be our number one, and it was a mistake not to give him that in last spring. When McGregor wasn't playing well, and that could have cost us significantly, and I stick to that view. And saying that, big if we get to the Champions League groups, and a big if, and I'm not saying we will, big if, I suspect G will have another round of buying. I know it's a short window before the window closes, but he might have another budget, and maybe our goalkeeper will be that. Is McLaughlin the answer? Not sure. He's certainly better, I believe. Distribution. He had the ropey pass yesterday, and they could have scored from that. But thankfully they didn't. We win all our games at Ibrox. We keep a clean sheet. We win the league. As simple as that. So like the 55, we need to have that kind of standard and mentality this year. We didn't have it last year. Last year was a joke. In some of the goals we conceded, it was embarrassing. For the defence and Rangers, we shouldn't be conceding these kind of goals. So we need to get back to these levels. I'm hoping with the restructuring of the defence, clearly Bassi gone, that money being reinvested. We talked about Yilmaz, Davis coming in, Connor, Golson, new contract or whatever. We will get back to that level, and that's what we need to get back to. That's how we're going to win the league and potentially progress in Europe in that respect. And yesterday was good in the sense that we had a couple of ropey moments defensively. We got over it. I've got more confidence with McLaughlin as a goalkeeper defending corners, and that's important because as we said earlier in this, physicality, teams that play as at Ibrox will use corners, free kicks. You saw Kilmarnock yesterday; they were punting balls in the park when they didn't really have to if they were playing proper possession football. So we're going to get that, and we need a goalkeeper that we're confident in, that can handle that, whether it's punching and having confidence in the back line. I suspect, again, last year psychologically, the defence, maybe in two minds, should I pass it back? Should I not? And then they get caught in possession or whatever, and they just lose momentum. And we need to get away from that as soon as possible. Because as they say, defence wins your leagues. Everybody talks about it, and we need to get back to that kind of mentality.
Tommy, spent a lot of last season speaking about should Alan McGregor be our number one as he came to the end of his time as Rangers' number one goalkeeper. We then spent a lot of the summer after he agreed his new contract talking about should it be Jon McLaughlin, should it be Alan McGregor, and the last thing we want to do is continue to go over old ground. One thing I did notice though, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on it, the game, Jon McLaughlin with the ball at his feet, trying to play out from the back. How much fear does that give you at times?
Yeah, it's not. So I think the best way to say that, it's not optimal. There we are. That's the polite phrase that I'll go for at this point in time. But listen, you're right. We don't need to go back to that conversation. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst and his management team have looked at it. They've also spoken to Alan McGregor, and they've said it was either a straight fight if you sign this contract extension, or you're definitely going to be number two. Being no surprises. Gios went with his man, it's Jon McLaughlin. Also, a symptom of that is, you can say the distribution isn't great, but he's being asked to play that way. And he's been asked to play that way with the management team again, knowing that he's not absolutely stellar. So you look at different component parts of that, is what I'm saying. If you look at the risk is it puts us in the back foot immediately. We could end up giving up goals, right? Well, we've done that with Alan McGregor as well, right? Keepers make mistakes. Ultimately, if you don't want to accept that risk of playing out from the back and utilising McLaughlin as another player, so to speak, doing that short passing, opening up the lines or playing it out wide early, then you're going to have to change the style of play. So that's what it comes down to. Do you want to accept the risk of the odd mistake, or do you want Rangers to not play out from the back and start to go longer? Quite frankly, I'll take the risk. I want us to try and open up teams that way. And it won't always be that way, even the different teams will play different ways, but I'm just trying to pare it down to individuals. You can talk about the specific chances, but that's not the risk. The risk is a binary choice. What do you want? I mean, obviously, the glib answer there would be McLaughlin to get better at distribution. Right? Fair enough. I take that completely on board, but that's not going to happen immediately. And at what point is it shared cabinet responsibility, so to speak, of players understanding their goalkeeper and making a little bit more space, or opening up their bodies and being ready to play quickly? Like, it's not all the goalkeeper's fault. So yeah, I won't duplicate what I've just said there, but that's the binary choice in my mind. What do you want Rangers to look like when they play out?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I've been a huge proponent of Jon McLaughlin being our number one this season. I think purely for one of the reasons Saf mentioned around them coming out for crosses and the number, and that's where the real threat is for many teams who come to Ibrox or play against us, is those cross balls, those corners, those free kicks around the edge of the box. And Jon McLaughlin's ability to come out and punch them like he did yesterday a few times, to come out and catch them proactively coming off his line, it takes so much pressure off the defence at times. I think that's a huge advantage. Also, Alan McGregor wasn't great with the ball at his feet. At times, it didn't feel like he could kick the ball beyond the halfway line which just is a bit mental. But I think I also have to remind myself that when that mistake is made, that I can't go hell for leather with him and criticise him at the same time. So I think that's one I'll have to remember. Saf, just looking at more going forward, and one of the players that continues to improve more as each game goes on is Malik Tillman. He showed some really nice touches yesterday, especially around the edge of the box. Obviously, Kilmarnock had a packed defence as we expected. I think I was sitting next to Kyle, one of the other hosts, and he'd read that 18 of Kilmarnock's squad of 23 are over 6'1" tall. So I think it made sense that we should try and mix it up from crossing in balls left, right, and centre into the box. We tried it a few times; it definitely didn't work. But I think then when we managed to get the ball into the likes of Malik Tillman and Tom Lawrence as well, at points we were able to work some nice touches around the edge of the box. Have you been impressed by Tillman so far, Saf?
I rate Tillman very highly. He's one to watch for me. I rate him really highly. If you think about it logically, most teams that come to Ibrox play with these low blocks. They're going to play with a 10 at the back, all digging in deep. So we need players that can see a pass, not just see a forward pass, but see 2 or 3 passes forward. And I think Tillman gives us that aggression, gives us that passing movement, gives us that movement left side or right side. And to be honest, I also really, I know that we've not really touched on it, and he's not really played this season. I don't know what's going on. Lowry as well. I rate Lowry really well in terms of what he can do for us aggressively in the midfield. I was really impressed with him last season when in the tail end when we played against Hearts, I believe. And Edinburgh played really well. I thought he would actually start the cup final, or certainly playing it. He didn't. But yeah, going back to your point about Tillman, I rate him really highly. You don't go to Bayern Munich, albeit he didn't really play at all much there, but certainly be considered there in that setup. Whether from a first team or even coaching, these guys coach really well across there. Not to be considered as top player. I rate him. He's done well so far. He played well yesterday. I expect him to play on Tuesday and have a central role for Rangers in that match. And overall, as a aggressive midfielder pairing going forward, seeing that second, third pass that nobody sees, because that's what we need. We need that kind of passes to break up the lines, to get people in the box, have shots on target. And we have, even last year, we had less of that. And I think Joe made the point pre-season. One of the reasons he signed so many players, or what his thinking is, when last year we were winning, 2-1 or 1-0, he wants to get away from that and start winning 2-0, 3-0, so we can have more comfort, have less risks on our hearts, when we watch Rangers or whatever, in that respect as well. And I think Tillman is central to that. I think he's a great player. He's impressed so far. He's on loan. I think we've got an option to buy. Let's see how that goes. I'm sure the club will look at that in due course, but so far so good. He'd be certainly on the team sheet regularly for me, and not even on the subs bench.
I completely agree. I think he's an exciting player. He's got that wee bit of magic around the edge of the park in the first half. He's got a bit of aggressiveness about him as well. He's not scared to go in for a tackle, which is really, really impressive. Tommy, just final point on the team before we come on to a more general point about Scottish football and the TV deal as a whole. But a final point in the team, Ryan Kent was obviously missing yesterday. Again, he was missing on Tuesday. Gio had said that the game just came a bit too early for him. He said again after yesterday's Kilmarnock game that it came a bit too early for him. Do you see him playing a part on Tuesday night, or is it becoming a bit of a concern that this injury is just rolling on and on?
Well, it's always a concern when an important player gets injured, and I think Ryan Kent gets a lot of stick. Sometimes I feel it's unwarranted. Ryan Kent gives more to the team than people maybe naturally see, in terms of drifting by two players. Actually opens up space behind that allows us to be slightly more forward thinking, and he does make players take a step back. Do I think he should score more goals and get more assists? I absolutely do. I'm not walking past that, right? He definitely needs better numbers. This needs to be a season into that, so to speak. But yeah, I would always want him in I would maybe not sure I would always start him, to be honest with you, right, depending on the game. I think at best he might be on the bench. I don't think I would see him starting. I think be surprised with that, but I think he's going to be the piece. So yeah, it's a worry because you want your best team fit and available for every single match to select from. It's really that simple, and that's one of those areas where we're still a little bit light, So it'd be good to have him back and back on the road. I wouldn't risk him if he's not available. Stick him in to start in case he breaks down. But yeah, let's wait and see. Just a quick word though on Tillman, who, strangely enough, a guy who came back from a cruciate ligament rupture in 2020.
Yeah,
it was out for the best part of the year. Yeah, I think he's got all the tools, and he looks really good. Where he probably needs to get to next, and Tuesday would be a great day for it, is start to put the ball in the net, all that type of good stuff. Because his touches, his ability around the ball, are really good. His ability to score pass. He's also not afraid to put the work in. I was watching him. He doesn't shirk. He's quite happy to get amongst it and do the running, do the chasing back, all that good stuff that you need. Sometimes, particularly when things are going against you, just get in here next to me and support me and help me, you forward players. So yeah, I really like him, and if he continues on that journey, then I would suspect the exclusive option that Zach has referenced there as well would be exercised. But yeah, so I think, sorry, to your point, if Kent starts, it means he's fit and available. If not, we go with somebody else, and we hope that he isn't out for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on Kent and Tillman on that. I think I've seen a few shouts already for us to exercise that option to buy. I imagine it's very much in Ross Wilson's mind anyway, from the moment that they agreed the Tillman deal that would be the case.
It is right, and that's absolutely logical. What I would say to those people is, a couple of swallows don't a summer make. A better way of putting it. The guys had some nice touches, not dominated. He was also part of us getting done 2-0 and stuff like that in USG. So let's just see people can look good in short spans. Go back to the team that I was talking about earlier. Top teams to be feared, players to be feared. What we all have in common: a high level of consistency. To this either.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and you wouldn't want to be jumping in with what I imagine the level of money is that we would have to shell out for a player like Tillman to Bayern Munich after 3 games. So very much a fair point. Tommy, just sticking with you for the start of the final topic before we round up tonight's podcast. It was a thread actually that was posted on Twitter by Grant Russell, who used to be head of comms at Motherwell. He led all the great work that they did as a club on social media and in the community and that side of things. I believe he's now moved to be head of digital comms at West Ham. But he was talking earlier on today about the inability of fans to get a legal stream of Scottish Premiership games when there's a 3 o'clock kickoff. I think the immediate assumption is that it's down to the government agreed blackout that has historically been in place. We've seen over the past 2 seasons, especially during COVID, that clubs were given the licence to put on their own pay-per-view services for fans, and I think that was very much appreciated, and it was taken on board by a lot of fans, especially when they weren't able to get into ground. The start of this season saw that come to an end, and the agreement with Sky that was in place for that come to an end, meaning it's no longer available. I think this is probably kicked off because the team the other side of the city were playing at 3 p.m. away from home yesterday, and other fans weren't able to see because it wasn't being broadcast anywhere, and Ross County weren't broadcasting it at all either. Gran went into detail about why that's the case. He said that the key barrier is that the Sky deal isn't just for the rights to the 48 games that they have said that they will show. It's actually they've bought the rights to all 230 games, including the playoff final. And that's why teams can't actually take on the secondary rights, as we sometimes see in the English and that side of things. He said, in theory, effectively, people assume that we're getting £25 million over the period for 48 games, which would give, he's written here, £520,833 per game. But actually, in reality, it's £25 million for 230 games, which works out about £108,696 per game that's shown, and obviously that's distributed via the placings at the end of the season. Ultimately, I think it comes down to Scottish football needs to almost find its way to get with the modern times, and really for the next TV deal, which I believe is due to start in 2025, come into that way that other sports have taken on, and find a way for fans of clubs to not only see games through an operator like Sky, but also for the games that aren't shown, find a way to allow that product to be viewed by fans.
Yeah. Listen, I think there's a lot to unpack here, and I can hear myself slightly, but there's a lot to unpack in terms of Grant's thread, which I saw as well. So I won't regurgitate the numbers that you've just given me there in terms of people just need to understand that main salient important point, which is that when you're buying a package, unlike the English Premier League, which segments, they do it in tranches, so you can get like an Amazon or an Apple or whatever can show games as well. Scotland's a bit more binary, and it says, right, when you buy this to your 48 to 230 game rationale that you're putting out there, it's exclusionary basis. So what you're saying is we get to cherry pick and nobody else can get into the basket. And it's as simple as that. So we own everything. What that leads to is exactly what you're talking about, and it's the way that maybe Neil Doncaster, etc., have looked at this, and I slightly want to use the phrase old-fashioned, right? But some of the governance around about our game is well-trained, and some of our lack of forward thinking is well-trained as well. When you do it like that, if Sky are saying, right, what we want to do is we just want to show top-tier games, which would generally be, Rangers and AN other, or Celtic, AN other, right? Because those are the biggest draws. They're willing to let everything else by and large go. One of the reasons you need, to some extent, teams like Dundee United, etc., to get into European football, because it starts to grow the footprint of the game, right? And I'm not saying that I want other teams in Scotland to do really well. I'm slightly partisan and small-minded, unfortunately, so I don't want them to do well, but I want them to help more revenue to Scottish football, because that absolutely helps a club like us who are playing at a much higher level. So anyway, back to your point. So when you do that on that exclusionary basis, what you're saying is, right, we own the menu and the restaurant, nobody else can come in. And so what that leads to is that old style dinosaur of, right, so nobody's allowed to do what people really want. So, I should say this part of the conversation is not brought to you by easegoal.com or anybody else, right? God forbid. I do not endorse that. This and iBox do not endorse any streams of that nature. But if you take Sky, for example, with the EPL, slightly unfair comparison, but I'll take that right now. I don't want to give too lengthy an answer about this, because I know Saf will be keen to get into it as well. What you'll get is the games. You can also have Amazon, etc. And then there's a really fast reflection on clips going out, and you can get short highlights on your Sky Q and all that type of good stuff as well. Scotland's absolutely much more binary and in a box. Very kind of, here is your game, and then here's some highlights, and you can see on sports. Right? I don't mind the sports angle, to be honest with you, whether they're actual people covering it, because that's good for free to air people, especially in a cost of living crisis. We need to have them. Anyway, what we need to get to is understanding the times. People want mobile devices. They want to be able to get their games, or at least their highlights, wherever they want. Other market players are coming in. We've got a problem in Scotland historically with the due diligence of market players, it has to be said, in terms of we'll grab anybody's hand that winks at us in advance, you know what I mean? So we need to be very, very careful with that. But that's what we need to do. And clubs need to have either some rights themselves, the games that aren't picked by the overall sponsor, or they need to have a bigger seat at the table to say, let's drive more of this, and how do you get better combined sponsorship and the money out the back as well. Again, we've seen that governments of our game is not particularly great. The last thing I would like on, and I don't have the figures to hand, because I'm not entirely sure that were ever brought out, but Rangers had obviously tried to jump some of that, or get round the side when they signed the deal with, I think, Star Sports in India, and they acquired the exclusive Scottish rights there. Now that's a pivot to the subcontinent, part of a pivoting strategy of Asia and China and those markets as well, which are quite lucrative. I'm not entirely sure that was a 2-year deal, if I remember correctly, and nothing actually came of it. But that's Rangers trying to do something proactive. So to your point, are we behind the times? Yes. Do we generally get pretty shafted, for want of a better way? It's not generally the phrase that I would go to, right? But yes, we do. I mean, I think the latest figures, we are behind things like the Eredivisie, the Jupiler Pro League, which is the Belgian league. We're behind the Swedish league, which I think we're behind the Polish league in terms of TV deals as well. So yes, it has to change, because we bang on about TV money and rights being the sole biggest driver of income into a league. Yet we're willing to sit on our hands. That's just not good governance, and it's not going to grow our game. So that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Covered a lot there, Tommy.
Apologies, guys. Bit of a soapbox moment.
I'm sure there's plenty in the class still giving their views. Saf, I'd be interested in you have a fan who maybe gets to Ibrox a couple of times a season, but not every single week. Obviously, over the last 2 years, you've been able to watch every single Rangers game through Rangers TV. That's not in a legal sense allowed anymore, and you potentially have to find different ways to view the games. It surely has to, in the next year, come in that the fans are able to watch games broadcast at 3 p.m. if they're not switched by Sky, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, very briefly, because I can see a lot on this topic as well. I'm conscious that we're short of time. It's actually embarrassing. In fact, I lost confidence in Scottish management authorities, whereas the SFA or SPL in March 2020, when they called the league, if you recall, I lost confidence in them then. I thought, this is enough, what they did then. And we need change. We need change at senior level. We need people that are more Ophi with the new generation, where that's technology. We're probably going to get Netflix, Disney, some of the Chinese operators in the next, Premiership round. Why can't Scotland participate in that as well? I'll give you a couple of numbers, and some of these are well known, but it's worth reiterating. Rangers get roughly between 3 to 5 million of domestic TV rev, roughly speaking. The bottom team in the EPL gets about 100 million. That's the bottom team. Man City probably get 200 million. You got to remember as well now, and it's worth reiterating this point as well. Football is a business, whether you like it or not. Chelsea recently got bought out by USP House. Milan again bought out by USP House. Barcelona selling all their revenues away because they need the money. Football is not football clubs or football. They're not playing football. They're media companies playing football. Okay, and we got to remember that. And whether that's now in the future, Rangers made a lot of money, as we know, in the Europa League run. But we get peanuts for the Scottish League TV rights, and that needs to improve a lot. Otherwise, we're going to miss out, and that gap is going to continue. 2 years' time, this month, in 2 years' time, in 2024, we're going to get a Champions League format. Okay, the Champions League as the four league group stage is going to go. So I would love Rangers to be participating in that going forward, and that's all about money, growing. And the only way you're going to do that is having a more proactive, aggressive, genuine revenue stream, and where you can watch all matches. Why deprive the customer of that? And I suspect in the future we may also get where the Old Firm games are spun out and treated separately. I know Stuart Robertson made this point previously about the revenue from an Old Firm match, Rangers Celtic, against traditional revenue compared to a Premier League match, and he's got the point is well made. It should be treated as equivalent, if not more so, based on the vast audience you get for these matches. And I suspect if Rangers had any sense, they would try and get those games treated separately against the background of equality for all and all the rest of it in terms of equalisation of TV money and whatever. But you've got to look after yourself at the end of the day. We've got to look after Rangers, our revenue streams, our capability to continue to win. So yeah, that's my kind of 2 pence, 2 pennies worth on it. But we can talk more than that, and no doubt in due course if one had to do that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a topic we keep coming back to, and I'll come back over and over again. I'm almost of the position that we're so far behind the 8 ball right now that actually catching up to the median. The other leagues I've seen, like Tommy mentioned, the Eredivisie and the Jupiler League in Belgium, catching up to them will get trying to catch up to the big boys that are playing in the Champions League year in, year out. I think we've just passed the hour mark, I think, so I think we'll end our podcast there. Tommy, thanks very much for joining us.
Well, actually, Craig, sorry, I know we're trying to wrap up there. I just didn't want us to walk away without saying congratulations to Rangers women, who started the season as champions, obviously. A 14-0 win. 14, you're not mishearing me, 14-0 win over Glasgow women today with 10 different scorers in there as well. Now, it's fantastic, as we've said before, that Rangers are leading in terms of how they are integrating the women's team and the way that we've formatted that as well, the first in Scotland, etc., and driving that narrative in Scotland. But just also an amazing performance, and one for the listeners to look out for when we bring back in short order the dedicated This is Ibrox Women's podcast, which will be supported by the likes of Claire Gemmell, ex-Rangers women's captain, etc. So yeah, fantastic performance. Nice to see both Rangers teams winning at the weekend.
Absolutely, definitely echo those sentiments, and 10 different goal scorers is incredible for a game. I know Glasgow women are just fresh this year, and I think they were playing in the second division. But against any team, it's both Rangers B teams to scale a victory as well. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Saf, for your time this evening. All that's left for me to say is thanks very much for listening as well. Please remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel. Please remember to also toggle on notifications so you get an email every time we go live. We've got some great content coming up on the channel. And don't forget our midweek bulletins every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 7 p.m. And I believe Scott Patterson will be back with you in his regular Sunday night hosting duties at 8 p.m. next week as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And until next time, goodbye.